Hello, 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 and welcome to Awaken Your Inner Whole Woman podcast. I am so delighted that you are here. Listen, I know it's not by chance, and you have landed here. You found your way here. No matter what you thought, you landed here, and I know that is because you are to be here for today. And you may have been listening for a while, so welcome back to all of our listeners who've been listening to the podcast. I'm delighted that I have been able to hold this space 4 years. And I have started something new this time where we're now doing it live. We're doing it live with video. And so if you are watching it for the first time on any platform with the video, welcome, welcome, welcome. And today I'm not doing this show alone. But what I know about you, whether I know your name, where you live, or what you're doing, guess what? What I know is that you are here because you want to awaken. You want to awaken to truth. You want to awaken to your purpose. You want to awaken to consciousness, healing, transformation. What I know about you is that's why you're here. Even if it's not conscious for you right now, your soul knows it. And so on our show today, I have a special guest, someone that I met, and we'll have to talk about our history together some years ago. And Bianca Hughes is here today as a psychotherapist and a mental health speaker who does a lot of work around perfectionism. And so we're going to talk about that topic with so many women who may have had challenges with perfectionism, or you know what, you are in that journey right now. And this show will be an opportunity for you to grow and to heal and to change. So come on in, Bianca, and share who you are, what you do, more about your work.
Yes, thank you, Natalie. I don't know how long it's been, but
It's been a
it's
while.
been a minute. And so yeah, the work that I do, people always, why do you do this work? What's this work you do? And really it's about that sense of the perfectionism, not feeling like we're enough, not doing enough, and just digging deep to help people understand the roots of that for them, because there's some similarities and there's some difference for different people. And in that work that I do, I'm then able to help them. So I love that you talk about the awaken, is to be their authentic self. And I feel like that is the sense of that awakening, right? So really aligning with their truth in regards to how they're made and how they're wired versus how everyone is telling them to be. And that's really what perfectionism is a lot of, is that we're living up to the expectations and beliefs of others. And so that work just that I do, from my own experience, and then working with clients, and then also speaking to those things as well.
Absolutely. And so I love that you hold space for women to do that. We both align in that area of helping them to really
Hmm.
step into their true selves. I wondered though, as you spoke on it, like how would a person know that they are struggling in this area? And I know there's stages where those who don't know,
Hmm.
those who know but can't fix it or do anything about it, and
Hmm.
then those that are on the other side.
Hmm.
What are some
Hmm.
of the things I should be listening for, looking for, or observing about myself?
Yeah. So I love those questions, listening and observing. So the first thing is, when we talk about listening,
Mm,
we're listening, and this can happen with anyone, right? We're criticizing, we're judging ourselves, right? But it's the language of the shoulds.
okay.
I must. I never. I always do this. I'm so stupid. I'm crazy. I'm always crazy. Like, what am I thinking? Like, I never can get it right. I should have known better, or I really regret this. So that is the language that you're looking for, whether it's coming out of your mouth or
Mhm.
whether it's in your head. I would be honest, the that is sometimes the hardest, because um we're so used to doing that, and we've heard other people do that, that we kind of normalize it. So it's sometimes it's not always easy to pick out, because we're like, well, that's just regular language.
Mhm.
But when you're doing that, if we're going to go to feelings, how does that make you feel? It makes you feel anxious. It makes you feel inadequate. And it makes you feel like a failure. That's the other big thing, right? If you're often feeling like you're a failure, right? You're often, no matter what you can do, you can never get it right. It's just never enough, right? The other thing is that people pleasing. So people pleasing in the sense of you're having a hard time setting boundaries, but a big one is you're constantly looking for validation and approval from other people, because that's what you've been taught. That's what the world has shown you. Like, that's what shows you that you're valuable, that shows you what you're worthy, that shows you that, you're acceptable in those regards. Procrastination. Often people don't realize that can be attached, but the issue with that is that your thinking is, I want to get it right the first time. I want to avoid mistakes. I don't want to mess up. So I don't even want to get started, or I'm doing all of this research before I get started.
Okay.
So those are the big ones. They tend to be high achieving. So it's not, yeah, it could be someone who doesn't work hard, but most of the time it's those are my high achieving, hardworking, and really hard and constantly going. You're not celebrating every time you get something new, you achieve something, you're not celebrating, you're on to the next one, in a sense of how you are treating and how you interact with yourself. So the biggest thing is there's also this element of rejection,
Mm.
self-rejection, and then fearing rejecting from other people. So
Wow.
I said a lot.
No, and I'm glad you did. Because what I have found is sometimes when we use the word perfectionism, people will self identify, and then there are those who says, "No, that's not me." Right? No, that's
Mhm,
not me. But
mhm,
when you broke it down and you said, here are what your thoughts are, here's what your behavior looks like, I think that helps people to say, oh, wait a minute, I am having challenges with that. So, no,
mhm,
I appreciated that you broke down those areas as the
mhm,
listeners are also listening to say, oh, maybe I am having some challenges here.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point to say at the end. Some challenges here. So perfectionism, I use the term perfectionism because for me, it is a thought. It's about your beliefs and your thoughts. Not so much of who you are as a person, and it can show up in different areas. So it's on a spectrum. So it might not
Mhm.
be in all areas. So I try not to use, oh, I'm a perfectionist. Like, this is what you do all the time, and this is all you are, and that's your identity. And really going down to the fact that it really is a way of believing, and our beliefs comes from our thoughts, which leads to our decision making and leads to our actions.
Right.
And that's what I really try to home in on.
I love that. I love that because when I think of you saying that, I think of not associating this with who you are, right? Which is all about this
Hmm.
authenticity that you're speaking
Yes.
to, right? Because
Hmm.
we can label ourselves based off of something that we're having a challenge with or we can't figure
Hmm.
out. But
Hmm.
you're saying, no, this is a part of you, but it's not all of you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
there's more
Yeah.
to who you are.
There's way more to who you are, but it does feel like that. If
Mhm.
you're challenged with that, if that's coming up, if you're feeling stuck and you keep going in this cycle, because it could be really a harsh cycle, it can feel like that, but that's not the truth.
Right, right. So, how do you bring awareness? Because awareness is so important, especially if someone is identifying that this is who I am, right? Given that I've had these challenges or I've dealt with it for a while, how do you help them to see more of these parts of who they are and to not allow this to define them in totality?
Um, so one of the things specifically working with clients is the language. It's the
Mhm,
way that you talk to yourself. I'm going to stop you and I'm going to like, did you hear what you said?
mhm,
So funny. All my friends, and I do it myself. Like, my friend was saying something recently, and I'm like, what? Like, they were talking bad about themselves. I'm like, that's not true. I think they was using the word
mm,
abusive. I don't want to be abusive. I'm like, gosh, that's like, can you use the word indecisive versus
mhm,
abusive? Like, do we have to go all the way to this and that's the spectrum of the black and white thinking? Either I'm doing great or I'm not like
right.
even the middle, like, oh, I'm being abusive, why am I'm like, no, you're just, I think you're just being indecisive. I don't really think this is abusive, right?
Mhm,
So it's homing in and helping them recognize and be like slowing them down. That's very important because they're high achieving. So they go. And I'm like, yeah, we're gonna slow this really down. The tendency is to want to solve and have a solution. And I'm like doing the opposite. So I'm bringing people into the discomfort of the things that they have been avoiding, which is the discomfort and the anxiety. And so helping them really build firstly is the awareness. And that's what that is. That is the biggest thing, is the awareness of your behaviors, your feelings and your thoughts, and then your beliefs.
Right, right, because we're in autopilot so much, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
So it's
mhm,
almost like when I hear you say that, you, like, give them permission to challenge these thoughts. They may have been thoughts that they've thought for a while, even not even realizing that they're their thoughts or someone else's thoughts.
mhm.
But you're like slowing them down, bringing in this mindfulness, this awareness for them to see, oh, you actually get to choose whether you want to think that way or respond that way. That sounds
Yeah.
empowering.
Yeah, it's so yes, it is. And it's so interesting you use that word permission. Because I've been doing I'm always evolving in the work I do and refining the work I do. And that was one of the words that really came up. And I was going back and forth with this permission because it's like, how can I give you permission? You give them yourself, but when you think of a permission slip as something that's handed to you, and then you take it, and then oh, I've got permission to do this. And then
Mhm.
you begin to give yourself permission. And I remember a client saying recently, like, you gave me permission to do this, and you gave me permission. I'm like, oh, yeah, I did. So I think that's on the ball. Yes, that's what the
Yeah.
clients say. Yeah, yeah,
Right, right. And it's not a permission in the sense of like when we were kids, so your parents would say you could or
yeah.
couldn't, but it's like this permission, like this space, right?
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this space to choose. I think that's when I
Mm-hmm.
think about permission, that they get a
Mm-hmm.
space to choose
Mm-hmm.
and that they can take that choice and make so many major shifts in their lives with just the
Yeah.
choice. And so I definitely understand how that works, what that looks like.
Mhm.
Tell me this, what's something important that people miss when they view incorrectly about like perfectionism? What are some things they might miss when they have an incorrect view of perfectionism?
That you're trying to be perfect in
Mm,
the sense that you're just trying to have everything done perfectly, your house, friends, all of that, right? That is
mm,
a very on the outside it looks like that because
wow.
that is what it looks like on the outside. Let's not like if we're going to talk about me, I'm always well, I actually like nice things, but I'm well put. But there was a point my mom told me to go to the store. I would have a shower, I would make sure I wear the same clothes, and she's like, "It's at the top," like, when I'm living in London, "It's at the top of the road, like, what are you doing?" But,
Mhm,
like, I could just not be seen like that, right? And now, like, I still enjoy wearing what I want, but I'm comfortable whatever I'm wearing, right?
mhm,
And so we think that it's just about the house and the family and the cars and everything, but it's really rooted in that fear of rejection and the fear of failure. So it's a lot deeper and it's a traumatic response.
right.
If you've been shamed growing up, if you have been told compared to others. And so I think that's what people miss is one, it's not just about trying to have perfect on the outside. And two, it's a traumatic response.
Right, right. Which I think many of us have had. I think a topic now that you're bringing into this conversation is about trauma and how we have these big T's, right? These big traumas. And a
Yeah.
lot of the times we think of those, the listeners, if you're listening, big T's are those events that we think of as traumatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we have these small T's that many of us
Mm-hmm.
have encountered that we're not aware of. But I
Mm-hmm.
love the work of trauma because it helps us to understand that we all
Mm-hmm.
can have been impacted. But for you, you're saying this could actually be a response to a traumatic thing that we've experienced. Tell us more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about trauma and the trauma work is about getting unstuck, right? So
Mhm,
we're stuck somewhere. And that's why I talk about the cycle of not feeling like you're enough and good enough. And one of the things I really learned and really struck me, which really made sense why I started to look in this lens, is I was in this training, it was a trauma training, and it was talking about how the most impactful thing is the psychological and emotional trauma.
right.
that is where people deal with, that is what people deal with the most. And it's way harder to overcome than some of the physical, and even like they were talking about physical and sexual, because even when you think about those things, they're an act. But what we're working with, as we both know, is the emotional and the emotional and mental part of that thing.
Mhm.
And when we think about, we didn't, I'll touch on this, is the roots of perfectionism. It's rooted in our childhood. It's rooted in what we see on the TV. It's rooted in the words that are said to us, where we've not been made, we've been compared, not made good enough, if we've been criticized. So if you are a child and you're experiencing, it's a sense of emotional or mental neglect,
Right.
those things are traumatic. And those things, like you talk about, the big T, the little t, to me are more impactful, because this is happening for day on day or every other day for
Right.
how many years. And now it's become a belief. Now it's become a behavior. So I want to avoid shame. I want to avoid rejection. I want
Mhm.
to avoid all those things in my childhood that caused me pain. And
Right.
so therefore I have to be perfect. And so that is why it's a traumatic response to
Right.
protect ourselves. So I
Right.
hope that makes sense.
No, it does. And you end it with a word that's important. I want anyone to listen to is it's a form of protection. And who doesn't want to be protected, right? From
Hmm.
emotional distress. All of
Hmm.
us want to be
Hmm.
protected from
Hmm.
that. And so this is kind of how people may find themselves in this place. It's nothing wrong with you. I think that's what you're
Mm-mm.
saying. It's just that it's a result of something that may have happened to you.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong. Like, it's just how I know how to operate. Like, when I think about myself, I didn't even realize I was doing it. Like, people would say
Mm,
to me, I think this is a big one. They would say, Bianca, um, you always have to be right. And I know this sounds weird, but I'm going to try to explain it. I'll be like, no, I don't. And then I'm like, I just don't want to be wrong. Meaning,
mm,
if I'm wrong, the shame, the embarrassment, I'm inadequate. How will people look at me? They're gonna reject me. And
mhm.
so I would never admit I was wrong, because I was like, I was just trying to avoid being wrong. I wasn't
Right. Trying to
like,
be
oh, I
right.
just want to be, I wasn't trying to be right. I'm trying to avoid being wrong. I don't
Right.
want no one to see my faults. I don't want no one to leave me. I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want to be talked about, because that is painful to me. And so
Mhm.
that was what I was avoiding, but it came across to other people as, you want to be right.
Right. Wow. Wow. And I can appreciate you sharing that because I think sometimes people feel like it's just me, right? It's just me.
Hmm.
And what I also appreciate for you sharing that is that we teach what we need to learn, right? And
Hmm.
so I was assuming, right, that this must be something you had to learn because now you want to teach it. Are you
Yeah.
comfortable sharing a little bit about kind of what that looked like for you and what you did to get to where you are?
Yeah. I was telling someone this the other day. Grad school. I'm so, anyone who has been to grad school as a therapist and you go through that DSM, you're gonna think everything is wrong with you. Okay. Like, oh my gosh, no, I'm messed up. But grad school, and as you go through grad school, and I don't know about yours, but mine, I found this one day, all of our papers. I swear, I never knew how many personal reflection papers we did. So once you're constantly reflecting in every class there, it was part of our course, or maybe weekly, some of the courses we did, and you're like, oh, there's some stuff here.
Mm.
There's a lot of stuff. I think it was talking about the family genogram.
Oh,
I mean, and
there's a
you're
lot
like,
there.
oh.
Mhm,
So I went to therapy. That was my first time doing therapy, and when I was in grad school, so I was like in my mid 30s, early 30s,
mhm.
and that's where, my therapist explained it to me, and, like,
Wow,
after a few sessions, begin to understand more and more about the perfectionism and what it was, and all of those things that began to unwind. So
wow.
yeah. That's where it started for me to realize that, this anxiety, these insecurities, that I had about myself, it just, yeah, that's where I began to see that.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that too. Like, one of the things as we are doing the work, we have to do the work, right? As we
Yeah.
are doing the work, we have to do the work. And I heard you even earlier talk about this embodiment kind of, I believe in the work. I'm expanding, I'm growing in my work, but I also know that means you have to grow in the work. To be able
Absolutely.
to share in that. Absolutely. So if you find that you're listening to this and you're saying, man, wow, she had the same challenges that I'm having, and she is now taking those opportunities to now teach and share with others. I just want you to know that that can be possible for you, right? And
hmm
whatever way you teach what you need to learn. And so if you're learning this, there's opportunities for you maybe to teach it on some way to help and support others through their journey. I know that's been my story. I didn't think, Bianca, I thought I was going to help others. That was really like, I'm helping women. I'm doing this. And then I got on my journey and was like, wait a minute, I think this is for you.
Yeah.
You are doing this work and you get to share it with others as you do the work. It's
Yeah.
an embodiment that you are now stepping into. So it was very interesting. I didn't realize. I didn't realize. Help us
Yeah.
with, what are some of the things someone can do if they find themselves struggling? Because I do understand that this isn't a like, oh, I got the awareness, my life is going to be better. What can someone do if they're struggling?
Um, of course, besides getting some support and some therapy, like in doing your research and kind of looking up to learn more. I have an ebook called You're Enough, Letting Go of the Pressure to Be Perfect, that
Um,
is dives into understanding the roots and giving you some worksheets there. I think educating yourself and getting an understanding so that you don't feel like you're alone. Anything that
mhm,
I do, I think that's important. When you discover something about yourself, I think I tell people, get a Facebook group or something.
mhm,
Read up on it, get knowledgeable on the subject, so that have some knowledge so that you don't feel like you're alone. Like there's loads of
right,
podcasts, like even like this, right? I
mhm,
know I've done loads of other podcasts so that you're beginning to get the understanding, right? And
mhm.
I know for all my high achievers that just want to fix it, I'm going to say this.
Mhm,
You are not someone that needs to be fixed.
mhm,
This is not this is like, you are not a problem.
mhm.
And I want to say that I'm giving you something to shift your mindset right now. You might be like, I don't want to hear that, but I am letting you know, feeling like you're a problem that needs to be fixed is causing you more pain.
Right.
And so that's where the compassion piece, what I'm doing is helping you be more compassionate. And that is a big piece, right? If when you begin to notice, how do you talk to yourself? The
Yes.
shoulds, I'm so stupid, or I'm crazy, or what was I thinking? And we start with, well, what would you say to a friend?
Mhm,
What would you say to your child, a niece, nephew, a godchild? What would you say? Would you use those same words? And if not, what would you say? And let's begin to give that to ourselves, because it's that compassion, it's that validation. Validation is, this is just my experience, and I'm not judging if I'm good or if I'm bad, if I should, quote unquote, in quotes, should be doing this. It just
right.
is. Those are some things. And in terms of slowing down, like just deep breathing. Sometimes you don't even
Mhm,
have time to anything, but let's do 3 deep breaths, right? So you're slowing yourself down because often you're a high achiever, you're just constantly on the wheel, you're doing so much. So I said a lot, and I
mhm,
would like everyone to take one thing,
mhm.
just one, just
Right.
just one. That's it. And once you feel like, okay, I've got the one, I have some sense of relief because there's a lot of anxiety there. Okay, let me explore this. I'm doing a lot of slowing down. I have slowed down a lot. Like I was just telling you, I just came back from a 3 month sabbatical. And
Mhm.
I'm adamant about my rest and slowing down and not trying to run the world. I think achievement is a strength of it is a strength of mine when I did Strength Finders. It is,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean I have to do a lot of things.
Right, right. It's not defined by how much you're doing.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What could it be defined by? Since you said that, I'm thinking someone is thinking, okay, so what do I define it by? How can you define accomplishment or achievement outside of
Yeah.
doing busy stuff?
Yeah. Absolutely. The my favorite one is what I do for myself.
Mm,
Oh, I rested. Great.
right,
Perfect. Right. Because there's
right.
always this output. Um, like being on a sabbatical, people would check in and be like, all right, where are you now? And I'm like, no, I'm in Thailand. All right, where are you going next? I'm like, can I
Be in
stay in
Thailand?
Thailand? We always on to the next thing, like trying to go to the next accomplishment. Can I be like, gosh, I made it to Thailand and I like
Right,
it here.
right.
Right. And so I think that's an accomplishment, like an achievement that, man, I spent some time with myself in the mirror today.
Mhm.
Man, I
Right,
encouraged myself today. Right.
right,
If you really want to work on achievement, let's because you guys are amazing. If you, this is you and I'm talking to you, you are amazing at all of your achievements on the outside. Okay, so I can sit here and tell you all day. They're
mm,
great. But what about when it comes to you? Oh man, I gave myself one piece of encouragement today. That's enough. I don't need you to give 10. I don't need you. The fact that you did that and you are mindful that you did that and you can recognize that, that is
right,
powerful. That's that awakening, like you're
right,
talking about, that begins to happen when you begin to see and acknowledge and accept. And so I think if you are a high achiever, let's take out those outside external and let's get into the internal.
right. Yeah, I love that. I love how you broke that down because you're right. Those of us, because I identified when you said about like people saying what's next and you're wanting to move into the next. And I can recall moments where I made huge accomplishments in my business and I was saying, okay, what do we do next? Right. And
Mhm,
I caught myself because
mhm,
it takes me 9, 10 months to prepare for that.
mhm,
And then it's over. And then I'm saying, what's next? And I needed to sit in it, right? Just sit in what had just happened. So I'm so
mhm.
glad you expressed that. And I'm hopeful that those that are listening will allow yourself the space to do that and
Yeah.
redefine achievement. What does it look like?
Mm,
What do you want it to look like?
mhm,
Is what I heard.
mhm. Yeah, because I was in this when I was in Colombia, I joined this it was an event and it was beyond small talk and I'll never forget this question. And the question was, this is towards the end of my sabbatical. And so the
Mhm.
question was, how do you define success?
Mhm.
And I said, it's not success. I was like, it's never a big word for me, but it's never, it's always, to me, it was just always achievement. I just want to achieve this. I didn't always equate it to success. But I could sit there and I said, you know what it is for me?
Mhm.
Liking and loving myself.
Mhm.
To me, with everything in the world that makes us go against and our experiences, the thoughts in our head that we have to fight, the things that we see, the images, what we believe. And if I can get through all of that and
Right,
like and love myself, that's
right,
success to me.
right,
That's an
right.
achievement.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Because we know people on the other side who have achieved and achieved, but don't like or love who they are.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
who they are.
Hmm.
What a beautiful place to pause this conversation because I know we could talk about so much as
Yes.
it relates to this topic and just life and who we are and what we do. But I'm sure my listeners are saying, how do I find out where Bianca is, her work, her practice? Because you didn't mention all of that. So share about how the listeners can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place, the most easiest place is my website. That's authenticallybu.com because my Instagram is on there, my LinkedIn, Pinterest, everything, all the links to that is there. But Instagram, authentically be you, and LinkedIn is probably my most. Bianca Hughes is probably the ones I'm on the most. Definitely Instagram, I'll be on there. Also on the website, and I can share the links. If you're like, is this me? Is this not me? You can access my quiz. It's a free quiz called Is Perfectionism Driving You? And you can see where perfectionism is in your
Wow.
life. And so I think that will just be also helpful for you to kind of get the gauge and see where you are. And then at the end of it, there's a lot of like, at the end, you'll read other resources that will take you to the next step in terms of wanting, where do I go? And I also share the link, 15 practices to connecting to your authentic self. That's another free download. So I'll send you that email too, because I think
Mhm.
it's important to understand the perfectionism, but what does it also mean to be you? And
Right.
practice and lean into that. Like, I don't always want to, I think as we talk about evolving, I talked a lot about the perfectionism.
Mhm.
I kind of live out the authenticity piece, but now I'm
Mhm.
speaking a lot more to that piece of the authenticity. And I think that's powerful as well. So I'll send you
Absolutely.
all the links for that as well.
Yeah, so you all can just go to the show notes and get, yeah, any information through that she shared. You can get it there to click on it to go straight to those sites. And I love that we're saying about the authentic self, because sometimes people will say, okay, so if I take away this perfectionistic self, who do I become? Right. And how do I
Mm,
evolve into
mhm,
what's next? And so
mhm,
you have a pathway, it sounds like, that really can support them throughout that
mhm,
journey.
mhm.
I so appreciate you being here today and allowing us to know more about you, who you are, what you do, and how you show up in the world. So, thank you for your work. And for the listeners, I appreciate you being here today. I know, again, it's not by chance that our paths have crossed. I'm looking to my microphone because typically this is the end of the audio. So, I kind of look at you like I'm seeing you, but I want you to know that. And I want you to know that whatever you've heard today, even if you just implement one of those things, whether it was a mindset shift or a practical tip, guess what? You are on the path to making subtle change to radically change your life. Those subtle shifts matter, and you matter as well. Until the next episode of Awaken Your Inner Whole Woman, bye for now.